Good morning, colleagues. We have one pre-gavel item this morning, and that's a proclamation to honor the life of Jennifer C. Lee. To introduce this proclamation, I welcome our Director of the Office for Community Technology, Elizabeth Perez. Good morning, Elizabeth.
Good morning. Good morning, Council. Good morning, Mayor. I would also like to acknowledge Sean Carver and Leanne and Edward Lee. Thank you so much for being here today. Jennifer Lee was a true asset to the city of Portland. Jennifer started with the city in December of 2010 after earning her law degree from Lewis and Clark and passing the bar. She spent most of her adult life as a Foster Powell resident. Jennifer's job was not one that was particularly glamorous, but rather grueling and frustrating at times. For the 12 years Jennifer was with the city, she negotiated and brought dozens of franchise agreements to City Council, many of which were backlogged when she began. She also understood the unsustainable nature of continuing with the franchise process, which is why Jennifer started the move to a right-of-way code, and I promise we will get that done in her honor. Jennifer increased the program from 2 staff to 4 with an auditor in the revenue division to build a better system of accountability among utilities. Under her leadership, the city collected nearly $1 billion in general funds from the franchise and utility program. Jennifer shied away from the spotlight and generally did not want accolades, but she definitely deserved them. Jennifer was admired and respected by her colleagues, both in the city and nationally, and this year was named a board member of the National Association of Telecommunications Officers and Advisors. Jennifer was not only smart and hardworking, she was kind and thoughtful and had a great sense of humor. She had a brilliant smile and was easy to laugh. On a personal note, Jennifer welcomed and helped me acclimate to the Bureau and was my true saving grace, offering support and counsel while I navigated the personnel and complex policy issues led by the small but mighty Bureau. I want to thank Josh Eddings, the franchising utility team, and the whole OCT team for banding together during this time and making sure that we took time to acknowledge Jennifer's accomplishments in life and to the city. I also want to thank City Council for honoring this exemplary employee and human today. I know that her loss is a loss not only for our Bureau, but to her family and to the city. So thank you all.
Thank you, Elizabeth, for sharing those remarks. And I see a number of our colleagues would like to say something as well. Commissioner Mapps.
Mr. Mayor, Director Perez, I'm shocked and saddened to learn of the passing of our colleague Jennifer Lee. On behalf of myself and my staff, I offer my condolences to Ms. Lee's friends and family. In my time on this council, I had the good fortune to meet with Ms. Lee on several occasions. I always appreciated her professionalism, her passion for our work, and her service to our city. And I'm not alone. Over the years, many city employees and many members of the public have worked with Ms. Lee. She was respected by all and loved by many. That's why I'm glad this council took a moment this morning to mourn and celebrate the life of a great public servant and a great friend, Jennifer Lee. May she rest in peace.
Thank you, Commissioner Mapps. Commissioner Rubio.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you for this proclamation. I know that we're joined by Jennifer's family, and I want to thank them for being here today and share that with the rest of Jennifer's family and friends and colleagues that the City of Portland is so grateful for her 12 years of dedicated service, and we're so sorry for this tremendous loss. I was fortunate to have been able to work with Jennifer for a brief time over the last year. And it's true, she was tireless worker, working hard to protect and strengthen one of our greatest public assets, which is the right of way. And she led the charge on the new policy, as Elizabeth mentioned, that's currently going through public comment and will be coming to council later this year. But above all, Jennifer was kind, she was thoughtful, and she was deeply respected by her coworkers and extremely dedicated to the things she cared most about. And at the center of that was her family. So we'll deeply miss her. We'll forever appreciate how her work has helped to shape our city. And through her accomplishments, it will be present in our city for years to come. And that's something that I will think about. So this is why we wanted to honor her today. And again, just thanks to her family for making the time to be here. Our hearts are with you.
Thank you, Commissioner Rubio. Commissioner Hardesty.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Director Perez, for bringing this to our attention. I will say Jennifer was a bright light in bureaucracy when I showed up, because I remember vividly that we had this requirement that we had to have a 5-0 vote when it came to franchise agreements. And Jennifer, with her creativity, with her vision, had a plan that she had been trying to move forward. And what a perfect time to actually start changing how we did those agreements. I will remember her as a troubleshooter, as someone that didn't take no for an answer, and someone that always had a smile and a willingness to dig deep into the issue that was in front of us. I want to say to Jennifer Lee's family, we will miss her. We will miss her creativity, her ability to go dig through the bureaucracy to get to a good outcome, and her ability to never, ever, ever lose her sense of humor in that process. She will be greatly missed, but her presence at the city is institutionalized. It will never, ever go away. We will be better because she worked here. And thank you so much, Director Perez, for bringing this to us today. I did not know we had suffered this loss. And my condolences to her work, her colleagues, and her family and friends. And just know we will all miss her greatly.
Thank you, Commissioner Hardesty. Commissioner Ryan.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. First of all, thank you so much, Director Perez, for bringing this to our attention and centering us before we have our meeting today in what really matters in life. And that is taking a moment to be present when someone passes, someone that is kind, humble, thoughtful, persistent. Those are qualities that you remember, even if you only met with them a couple times. And that's why everyone that works with her must be so sad. And my condolences to the work family, and especially to her family who's with us today. Life is so precious. And I just wanted you to know that my heart's with you. And I'm really grateful that I work for an organization that has values that actually takes time to be present when something like this occurs. So I'm grateful that today is Jennifer Lee Day, and I'll have that in my mind all day long. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Commissioner Ryan. And I want to start by thanking Elizabeth Perez and her staff, along with Commissioner Rubio's staff, for drafting this proclamation today. I want to particularly thank Jennifer's family for raising an amazing individual and sharing this great individual with all of us at Portland City Hall. We're better off for it, and the community is better off for it. Jennifer obviously had lasting connections with so many people at City Hall. She will be missed greatly, and our hearts go out to her family, her friends, and to her entire community. And now it's my honor to read this proclamation on behalf of the entire City Council. Whereas Jennifer Lee, after 12 years of exemplary leadership as Franchise and Utilities Program Manager in the Office for Community Technology, passed away February 20th, 2022. And whereas the public right-of-way is one of the city's most valuable assets. And whereas Jennifer protected local authority over our right-of-way, which is an incredible public asset. Whereas Jennifer oversaw the collection of nearly $1 billion for the use of the public right-of-way. And whereas Jennifer negotiated countless franchises and extensions for use of the right-of-way by industry on behalf of the City of Portland. And whereas Jennifer led and championed the development of new right-of-way city code coming in front of the City Council in 2022. And whereas Jennifer was a thoughtful and inclusive team leader, respected and admired by her colleagues within the city and all across the country. And whereas the City of Portland is grateful for Jennifer's exemplary navigation of federal, state, and local laws to provide regulatory oversight, advocating for policies, legislation, and protection of the public right-of-way. And whereas the City of Portland recognizes Jennifer's dedication to public service in this community and extends to her family our sincere sympathy upon her passing. Now, therefore, I, Ted Wheeler, Mayor of the City of Portland, the City of Roses, do hereby proclaim March 15th, 2022 to be Jennifer C. Lee Day in Portland and encourage all residents to observe this day. Thank you. Thanks, colleagues. Colleagues, we are now in session. This is the March 9th, 2022 morning session of the Portland City Council. Keelan, please call the roll.
Rubio.
Here.
Ryan.
Here.
Hardesty.
Here.
Maps.
Here.
Wheeler.
Here, under Portland City Code and state law, the City Council is holding this meeting electronically. All members of the council are attending remotely by video and teleconference, and the city has made several avenues available to the public to listen to the audio broadcast of this meeting. The meeting is available to the public on the city's YouTube channel, eGovPDX, www.portlandoregon.gov/video, and channel 30. The public may provide written testimony to council by emailing the council clerk at cctestimony@portlandoregon.gov. The public may, I already read that. There you go. And with that, now we'll hear from legal counsel on the rules of order and decorum. Good morning.
Good morning, Mayor and Council. To participate in council meetings, you may sign up in advance with the council clerk's office for communications to briefly speak about any subject. You may also sign up for public testimony and resolutions, reports, or the first readings of ordinances. The published council agenda at www.portland.gov/council/agenda contains information about how and when you may sign up for testimony while the City Council is holding electronic meetings. Your testimony should address the matter without being considered at the time. being considered at the time. When testifying, please state your name for the record. Your address is not necessary. Please disclose if you're a lobbyist. If you're representing an organization, please identify it. The presiding officer determines the length of testimony. Individuals generally have 3 minutes to testify unless otherwise stated. When your time is up, the presiding officer will ask you to conclude. Disruptive conduct such as shouting, refusing to conclude your testimony when your time is up, or interrupting others' testimony or council deliberations will not be allowed. If there are disruptions, a warning will be given that further disruption may result in the person being placed on hold or ejected from the remainder of the electronic meetings. Please be aware that all council meetings are recorded. Thank you.
All right, thank you. First up is communications. Keelan, first individual, please, item 163.
Request of Keegan Bockhorst to address council regarding ban of force-fed foie gras.
Good morning, Commissioners and Mayor Wheeler. My name is Keegan Bockhorst, and I'm a Portland resident and law student at Lewis and Clark. I'm communicating with you today to ask you to please ban the sale of foie gras in Portland. Foie gras production involves inserting a tube into a bird's esophagus and force feeding it multiple times a day for several weeks, causing its liver to become diseased. The liver can grow up to 10 times its normal size. This entire process obviously causes the bird extreme amounts of pain and suffering until it is killed. Because of the abuse inherent in the force feeding process, birds develop severely weakened immune systems, which makes them especially vulnerable to bird flu infections. Bird flu can spread to humans, which can cause infectious disease outbreaks. In addition to these effects on animal and human welfare, foie gras production harms the environment as well. It wastes large amounts of water and electricity, pollutes air and water with manure and slaughter waste, and threatens endangered species through deforestation. Because of the animal cruelty, human health risks, and environmental impacts that the foie gras industry causes, the sale of foie gras has been banned in New York City, California, and countries like the UK, Germany, Italy, Norway, Poland, Turkey, Israel, and India. I am asking this council to add Portland to that list by banning the sale of foie gras in the city. I know that the council has placed high priority on gun violence, houselessness, and COVID recovery, and I'm thankful that you've done so. But I ask that the council also find some amount of time and energy to enact this ban, because doing so will save birds from cruelty, lessen the chances of bird flu outbreaks, and mitigate the environmental impact by removing Portland as an option for sales. The ban is also a symbolic move, showing other cities and states that governments who care about these issues can take action. Finally, I think banning the sale of foie gras would be an easy but important win in a very difficult time. Thank you very much, and I yield the rest of my time.
Thank you. Keelan, next individual, please, item 164.
Request of Katie Gray to address council regarding foie gras sales ban. Katie hasn't joined us yet.
All righty. Next individual, please, 165.
Request of Nazanin Farania to address council regarding banning foie gras.
Hello, good morning. My name is Nazanin Faroukhnia, and I'm a Portland resident. And today I'm here to encourage you to please pass a ban on the foie gras sales in Portland. As many of you know by now, ducks and geese have been force-fed with 12-inch tubes down their throat at least 3 times a day, which cause them unimaginable suffering. And as a result of this inhumane practice is a fatty liver, which considered a luxury that most people would never buy. Force feeding these innocent birds is so cruel and unethical to the point that it has been banned in so many countries and some US states like California and also New York City. So why not Portland? I moved to Portland after finishing my PhD to start my career about 3 years ago. And first thing I noticed about the city was kindness. I was amazed to see how people raise their voice for justice and equality and for being kind to one another. And now it just breaks my heart to see people of Portland are struggling to pass a ban on one of the most unethical practices in the world. Foie gras does not reflect Portlanders' values. It's against animal rights, it's against equality, and it's inhumane. Most importantly, it's not us and it's not who we are. We are better than this. We are kind, not cruel. Our luxury is our compassion, not eating foie gras. We understand that city is dealing with many issues at this time, but unlike other issues, banning foie gras sales does not require a budget and it's not as complicated. It just needs a little bit of time and compassion, which I'm sure we all have. Mayor Wheeler and city councilors, please stand at the side of justice and raise your voice for voiceless. Please pass the ban on the foie gras sales in Portland and make us feel even more proud to be a Portland resident. Thank you so much for listening.
Thank you. Keelan, I understand Katie just showed up, 164.
Yes, that's correct.
Go ahead.
Request of Katie Gray to address council regarding foie gras sales ban.
Good morning.
Can you hear me?
Yes, loud and clear.
I'm so sorry. I was on the phone and it didn't register that I was on. Mayor Wheeler and city council members, my name is Katie Gray and I'm a veterinarian and served as the Oregon representative for the Humane Society Veterinary Medical Association for the past 6 years. HSVMA is a nationwide association of veterinary professionals, including approximately 181 Oregon members, with a focus on the health and welfare of all animals, including poultry. I'm speaking today in support of an ordinance to ban the sale of foie gras in Portland. Foie gras is produced by force-feeding ducks and geese to fatten the liver, which is then consumed as a luxury food. This process is inherently inhumane, as fatty liver is a pathologic process characterized by the presence of large amounts of fat within cells, causing illness, pain, and even death in the affected bird. While a normal bird liver consists of about 5% fat, fatty liver in a force-fed bird is composed of 50 to 60% fat. The methods used to force feed involving forcing a tube down birds' throats, then pumping unhealthy amounts of corn mash into the esophagus. This process causes birds significant fear and distress, while the trauma can also result in injuries to the esophagus, neck, and even broken bones due to rough handling. Force-fed birds are often kept confined indoors in small pens, and in some cases in near darkness. Liver disease can make it difficult to walk because of the extreme liver expansion causing abnormal stress on the bird's legs and joints. Both of these conditions result in leg and foot disorders, swelling, and injuries that result in even more pain and suffering. I urge all members of the City Council to adopt legislation to ban the sale of foie gras in Portland, which would align with the city's reputation for ethical treatment of animals and would prevent needless animal cruelty. Thank you for your time and your leadership on behalf of animals.
Thank you. Next individual, please, Keelan, item 166.
Request of Robert Butler to address council regarding Bureau of Transportation negligence.
Good morning to Mayor and Portland Commissioners. My name is Robert Butler, Portland native and resident. Well, welcome back to the dunk tank, Commissioners. My history is to be a free enterprise activist and to praise the good and condemn the ugly. As such, I've been known to every mayor since Frank Ivensby in the 70s. Mayor Wheeler, I have a compliment for you. From my knowledge, you are the best educated mayor since the 70s. Congratulations. Over decades, I've tried to be a free enterprise activist, ever willing to praise the good and condemn the ugly, as you may know. I am now a volunteer to help save the Russian grocery at the corner of Division and 109th. This morning, my conversation is well intended, but reality is a 2020 vision. And if you listen objectively, I promise not to send you to the dunk tank. At last Wednesday's City Council meeting, you met a very accomplished Russian immigrant, now a U.S. citizen, took 20 years, who bought the Roman Russian grocery in 2007 at 109th and Division. Since 2007, this owner, Fatima Magomedova, has increased the grocery employment by 4 times to 20 jobs. As such, the Roman Russian grocery has become the social hub of the Slavic community here. Her customers and help speak both Russian and English and Ukrainian. Nearly all 20 employees are from Ukrainian ancestry. 2 more employees have just been hired as Ukrainian refugees fleeing Putin's invasion. As a brief history of the Vision Project, in December 2016, it was Mayor Charlie Hales that invented Vision Zero, a way of thinking to end car crashes and serious fatal injuries on Division Street. For 7 months afterwards, the public participated in what was to become a vision for the changes on Division Street plan from 80th Avenue to 174th. City Council next hired engineering firm CH2M for $500,000 to put the collective design into an engineering design. But in June 2019, apparently it was Commissioner Chloe that didn't like the work that was produced by CH2M. She wanted to completely overhaul the plan her way. Then on June 30th, 2019, City Council approved her $286,000 increase to engineering to convert the plan her way. On July 14th last year, Commissioner Harsey presented an ordinance with 114 pages of exhibits, which the council bought into and approved. It was February, just a few weeks ago, that Roman Russian Market noticed suspicious construction people out in front of the store.
Hey, Robert, I'm sorry to interrupt. You're way over time. Could you? There's a couple of main points you want to make. Can you make them so we can move to the next one? Thank you.
Well, there were 3 additional public minutes left for public testimony, but thank you, Mr. Wheeler. So what's happened is that some difficulties with PBOT have been apparently resolved. We're on a track, I think, of solving the problems of the potential ruination of the Russian grocery by hiring a traffic engineer.
Good.
And so we're looking forward to that, making progress with that, although TriMet has been a stickler in working with us and has refused to so far. So that's still a problem. Next week, another member of the community from Slavic businesses will be here to speak to you about progress and his own concerns of his survival. And thank you for letting me go a minute over time.
Yeah, and thank you, Robert, for highlighting the good work of the Russian grocery store. We appreciate it. I'm sure a lot of people listening will want to support their efforts. Thank you. Keelan, next individual, item 167, please.
Request of Eudora Lively to address council regarding unjustly ways of Portland Police Bureau.
Good morning.
Good morning. Sorry. Can you guys hear me?
Yep, loud and clear.
Hi, good morning, commissioners, and thank you. Today, sharing testimony with council, I feel like I'm the rope in the game of tug of war. My life is on one end and PPB and other law enforcement agencies on the other, the system, so to speak. I don't want to take my allotted time and point fingers at PPB, but instead explain facts to their practice unjust and unprofessional ways. Obviously, there is a bigger picture to the accusations I'm claiming against PPB, but in short, explaining my most recent encounter with PPB left me with absolutely nothing but the clothes on my back. Just to go back a little bit, I now feel like I'm being targeted. Last year, I went and listened to, and listened to Kent Ford speak. And the next day, I had 4 transient officers come up to me and ticket me because of the bus driver giving me the wrong ticket. Coincidentally, it was the next day after I had listened to Ken Ford. And then now this happening to me, I recently located a PPP directive regarding pilot programs, and in the directive, it has stated that the city wasn't allowed to pay for fleet or communication infrastructures. I actually emailed my findings to an individual of high standings and also Channel 6 News. And 3 hours later, I was actually pulled over by PPP for a minor traffic infraction. The officer asked me my name and date of birth. He did not ask for my license, registration, or insurance. He did not inform me of why he pulled me over. Excuse me. At that point, he then had asked me to hand over my keys, me still not knowing why he pulled me over. So I then asked him why he pulled me over, and he said that I had no taillights and I was speeding. Sorry. So he ran my name, and it came back that I had a warrant, which I explained to the officer that I had turned myself in the same day that I had that warrant issued. And I had documentation proving that too on hand. And I explained that. But that's neither here nor there. Like I said, there's the bigger picture. The officer then asked my passenger's name, and I said, "Why are you speaking to my passenger?" Well, he did see an open container. I had just picked up this individual. I've given him a ride. I'm houseless, as well as the other individual. While the officer continued to verify my passenger's information, I sat quietly and patiently. The other officer stood at the passenger's door and began the conversation, asking where I was headed, where I lived, where do I find a safe place to park at night to sleep? Because obviously I expressed to her that I lived in my car. All the while she continually lied and repetitively stated, "We will have you out of here," quote unquote. "We will have you out of here in no time," quote unquote. "We probably won't even be taking you in on that warrant, quote unquote. "You'll be out of here shortly." Well, my passenger had several issues, and I can understand why they would have removed him from my vehicle. Me, on the other hand, don't understand. After they removed him, they had me exit the vehicle as well. And not until I was handcuffed and being patted down, they told me I was going to jail on the warrant. I begged with the female officer, explaining again how I turned myself in on the warrant and I would not be able to get my vehicle. I will not be able to afford it.
Excuse me, Adora. You are like a minute and a half over, but
okay.
And I know that this is really a hard story for you to tell.
Okay. Yeah.
This is Commissioner Hardesty, and I will say, if you would like to leave your contact information with the clerk, I will have a staff person in my office with you, then take the time to hear the whole story. Let me just say, I feel the emotion in your voice, and I'm so sorry you've had this experience. And let's have a longer conversation. I just don't think we're going to get all we need to hear from your story.
Okay, okay, that's fine. I appreciate that, and I just want to. I was almost finished, but I just want to point out that they were very unprofessional, and they just were making jokes, laughing, high-fiving each other. I mean, it was just so unjust. It was extremely unprofessional, the way that they handled the situation and not caring.
When did that happen?
That was on January 29th. And also, just to point out that they, that same weekend, they had about 7 shootings in Portland.
In Portland, right?
Yeah, and there was news stories about how they were not answering dispatched calls, but yet they found the time to pull me over for a minor infraction, and I just don't understand it. And like I said, I feel like I'm being targeted. So. Yeah, I just had to speak on that, but yeah, I would appreciate it. if you would definitely, like I said, they left me with nothing.
We'll reach out. I know that we're not going to be able to get you answers that you're looking for in this session this morning.
Okay.
But yes, please leave your number and I'll have my staff reach out to you today.
Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you for being here. And I'm so sorry you've had that experience.
Thank you, commissioners.
Thank you, Commissioner Hardesty. Thank you, Eudora, for being here this morning. Keelan, that completes communications. We'll go to the consent agenda. Have any items been pulled from the consent agenda?
No items have been pulled.
Please call the roll.
Rubio.
Aye.
Ryan.
Aye.
Hardesty.
Aye.
Maps.
Aye.
Wheeler.
Aye. The consent agenda is adopted to the regular agenda. Item 172, please.
Proclaim March 2022 Women's History Month.
Colleagues, in 1987, Congress declared March as National Women's History Month in perpetuity. Women across our community, our state, and our nation continue to build upon the significant and impactful contributions of women throughout history. These contributions, both paid and unpaid, are felt in economic, cultural, educational, political, artistic, literary, scientific, and technological advancement, despite historic inequities that continue to ripple throughout our society today. The City of Portland recognizes that every woman has a unique story, though it's clear that those stories are woven together with resilience and strengthened by their diversity. The women working in the City of Portland enrich both our employee community as well as our community at large. Council is committed to continuing to engage stakeholders and organizations to improve the ways in which we support and empower our women employees, and to recognizing the accomplishments made by women in our employee community, not just today or not just this month, but every day. The City of Portland celebrates the work done by the Women's Empowerment Employee Resource Group, a group of civic-minded people committed to service through connection, equity, and support for women in the City of Portland. The City of Portland also recognizes the many formal and informal groups within our employee community working to improve the quality of life for women through advocacy, creating brave spaces, community engagement, outreach, and inclusion. And now I'd like to open it up to my colleagues on the council to give remarks before I read the proclamation. Colleagues. I want to thank the Women's Empowerment Employee Resource Group, and especially Linda Nowitzki and Anna Brophy for drafting this proclamation. Commissioner Maps.
Mr. Mayor, I do have comments. I thought on a day like this, I would try not to go first and allow Commissioner Rubio's or Commissioner Hardesty's to make any comments if they'd like to start out. But if no one wants to start out, I do have some comments I'd like to share.
You're up.
Can I defer to Commissioner Rubio?
Oh, Commissioner Rubio then.
It's okay, Commissioner Maps. Go ahead. I just did it to add myself into the queue.
Okay. Mr. Mayor, colleagues, I am proud to join you in declaring March 2022 to be Women's History Month here in Portland, Oregon. During Women's History Month, we honor the legacy of women who have made a lasting impact on our city. That's why I'd like to take a moment to remember the women who have served on this city council. In our city's 171-year-long history, only 10 women have served on this council. In 1943, Dorothy Mccullough Lee became the first woman to serve on this council. And in 1948, Commissioner Lee ran for mayor and won, which makes her Portland's first female mayor. In 1970, Connie McCready became the second woman to serve on this council when she was appointed to a vacant seat. McCready was a maverick Republican who broke with her party on issues like the Equal Rights Amendment and gay rights. In 1979, McCready was appointed mayor when Mayor Neil Goldschmidt resigned in order to become Secretary of Transportation for the Carter administration. In 1972, Mildred Schwab became the third woman to serve on this council when she was appointed to a vacant seat. Schwab was a lawyer and a crusader for women's rights who played an important role in forcing Portland businesses and private associations to serve women. In 1981, Margaret Strawn won an election to fill a vacancy on this body, which makes her the fourth woman to serve on Portland City Council. Strawn was instrumental in the creation of the Pearl District. In 1991, Gretchen Kafori became the fifth woman to serve on this council. Of course, many Portlanders remember Gretchen Kafori well and with love. Gretchen's obituary in the Oregonian described her like this. She was a rabble-rouser, a mother, a grandmother, a teacher, an organizer, and a friend of the poor. In 1992, Vera Katz was elected mayor of Portland, which makes her the sixth woman to serve on this council. Vera was a refugee from Nazi Germany and a fierce advocate for women. Throughout her long career, Katz practiced something she called the feminization of power, which basically boils down to achieving her goals through consensus instead of confrontation. Under Mayor Katz's leadership, Portland transformed from a sleepy timber town into the vibrant, livable, and weird city we know today. Amanda Fritz joined this council in 2009, which makes her the seventh woman to serve on this body. Of course, many Portlanders know Amanda well. She is a champion for campaign finance reform, Native American rights, and served as the commissioner in charge of the Water Bureau, Parks, the Bureau, and the Bureau of Development Services. Chloe Ujali joined this office or this council in 2016, which makes her the eighth woman to serve on this body. Commissioner Ujali was a passionate advocate on behalf of renters, which brings us to today's council. In 2019, our colleague Joanne Hardesty became the ninth woman to serve on this body and the first Black woman to serve on Portland City Council. And in 2021, Carmen Rubio became the 10th woman to serve on this council and the first Latina to serve on this body. Commissioners Hardesty and Rubio are true Portland trailblazers. They are heroes to us all. That's why I'd like to take this moment to thank Commissioner Hardesty and Commissioner Rubio for their service to our city, their role in history, and their fierce advocacy on behalf of all women. For these reasons and more, I'm proud to join this council in declaring March 2022 to be Women's History Month here in Portland, Oregon. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Mapps. Commissioner Rubio.
Thank you, Mayor, for bringing this forward. And thank you, Commissioner Mapps, for your very kind words and that background. I also want to thank the Women's Empowerment Group for all your work that you do to advocate and empower female employees here at the City of Portland. We've made much progress since we first celebrated this month back in 1987, and yet the work still continues to close the gender wage gap and ensure all women, especially Black, Indigenous, and women of color, step into leadership roles and decision-making spaces at the same weight that cis, white, straight men do. And I say this as the first Latinx woman to serve on this council, along with Commissioner Hardesty, who's the first Black woman to serve in our very long history of Portland City Council elected officials. We know that this pandemic has exacerbated the existing gender, racial, and economic disparities for women and girls. And as we emerge from this time, we need to keep this always front and center in our minds. So not just in one month, but every day. I am committed to honoring the groundbreaking women of all identities and abilities, but also the women who every day in our community lead with their strength, resiliency, and values to make this community better. From organizers to community leaders to working mothers to young women and girls who have a vision for their communities. Some of these women for me are my own mother, Maria Caballero Rubio, and my grandmothers, Dolores Caballero Rubio and Hortensia Cifuentes. My many tias, my aunties, mentors and friends, including my colleague, Commissioner Hardesty, the only other woman on this council and who's been such a support for me. And also the strong, hardworking women all over the city, including the women who work for this council. And I'll just call out some that work with me: Jillian Shoney, Misan Kwan, and Mona Schwartz. So I'm proud to work along each one of them and each one of you. So I appreciate the work that we all do every day. And I appreciate that we're taking this moment to honor women everywhere today as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Rubio. Commissioner Ryan.
Yes, thank you, Mayor, and to the Women's Empowerment Group for bringing this proclamation forward. Colleagues, I look forward to this proclamation. It's celebrating Women's History Month in Portland. Of course, every day women create history, mold our world, and outline our future with more heart and common sense than their counterparts. That said, this month we can be intentional to love on and support the women who have cared for and shaped us throughout our life. When I reflect on women who have impacted me the most, I think about how almost all of my closest friends from elementary school through college were women. Let's face it, the Gays and Girls Alliance was organic for me. Most of my supervisors have been women, and how early on in my career I felt comfortable following and supporting the leadership of women. We'll be posting historical figures throughout the month, our sheroes on our social media platforms, and I really appreciate the history that was provided by Commissioner Mapps. Thank you for doing that. And I just want to end with a few personal acknowledgements. Everyone, my mom, Donna Jean Ryan, she was a foster child from ages 2 to 14. She was a temporary guest in 11 homes during those years. Her goal was to have a big family full of love, and she accomplished that with 8 children, 6 more than the doctor's orders. And that says a lot for a practicing Catholic. And she became a social worker after that. In fact, she went back to school when she was done raising her children. I guess she was done when I was about 10. So I had the fortune of going to the library with her at University of Portland. And I think that's really one of the main reasons why I was the first of my family to go to college. She passed away 28 years ago, and I so miss her often. She taught me that grieving is love with a bad reputation, and she grows deeper in my heart daily. I also get to serve with 2 amazing women. I learned so much from both of them. They're fierce. We don't always agree with each other on everything. Who does? That's like not a thing. But man, we sure have real conversations. So thank you, Commissioner Hardesty, for being there when I first got elected, and definitely doing a lot of mentoring the first few months when I didn't really know where the onboarding system was, but you were definitely part of it. Thank you. And Commissioner Rubio, what can I say? We go back a couple decades now. So I see you as definitely a sister. And I so am fortunate and blessed to be on the council with you. And I will end as well with the women on my staff and the office that helps build our Safe Rest Villages and the much needed permit reforms in our city. So thank you so much, Charity Montez, Karen Jillian Chapman, Michelle Ladd, Laddie Porter, Terry Tyson, Margot Week, Brooke Gardner, and my Chief of Staff, Kelly Torres. This queer elder will always surround myself with women, and you should too. I am excited to vote and support our proclamation for Women's History Month 2022. Thanks.
Thank you, Commissioner Ryan. Commissioner Hardesty.
Thank you. Some days it pays to go last after Commissioner Mapps does his historical perspective, and after I listen to all the passion from Commissioner Rubio and Commissioner Ryan. What can I add to this conversation? Let me say that I am excited that we are honoring Women's History Month. Let me say that women are making history every single day in the state of Oregon. And I want to tell a story. I remember as a rookie legislator, going into the legislature, there were 16 rookies my first year in. Won't be surprised I was the only person of color. You may be surprised I was the only woman. So in my entire freshman class, I come in, I look around and go, whoa, this is going to be interesting. I will say, as I look around at our leadership today, I am actually excited and thrilled to see so many women, especially women of color, stepping into leadership in this state. The fact that we have a BIPOC caucus in Salem just makes me giddy and giggle a lot, because that there were 2 of us when I was there, and we counseled each other out. The late great Jackie Winters from Salem. Her and I spent my entire legislative career counseling each other out. I say that to say that, in fact, we have come a long way, but clearly we have a long road still ahead. When we look at leadership at the city of Portland, it is still primarily white, primarily male. When we look at how we make a lot of our decisions, still white men are leading the charge. So today I just want to say the women are coming. So you guys better get ready, because they're getting prepared, they're educating themselves, they're organizing. And I just can't wait to see what this next generation of bright BIPOC women will do when they assume their seats of power. And I look forward to mentoring them along the way. I had to laugh when a few of you talked about me assisting you coming on. I wanted to do that desperately, because I knew even when we were meeting in person, it was difficult to be onboarded, and I just couldn't imagine what you would go through being onboarded on a Zoom call, right? So I'm glad that was helpful for all of you. And in closing, let me just say that I want to honor my mom. My mom died 15 years ago. My mom had a middle school education. And as I sit here today, I can tell you that my mom could never have imagined me sitting in a seat that I'm sitting in today. I couldn't have imagined it, and I know she and my dad couldn't. And so I honor my mom today, Rose Nellums, and say to her, you did good, Mom. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Hardesty. Before I read the proclamation, I again want to thank the Women's Empowerment Employee Resource Group, and especially Linda Nowitzki and Anna Brophy for drafting this proclamation on behalf of the City Council. And now the proclamation. Whereas the community's greatness and success is a direct result of welcoming and empowering all people, regardless of race, color, ethnicity, religion, spirituality, gender identity, sexual orientation, national origin, age, culture, class, and mental or physical disability. And whereas women, especially women of color, have been limited, unacknowledged, and often unrecorded in their contributions, women such as Mary Jackson, the first of NASA's African-American female engineers, or Dr. Dorothy Celeste Bolding Farabee, who tirelessly worked to make healthcare more equitable for African Americans, and many more have been present in untold or oral histories and continue to play important roles in furthering knowledge and leading fair and sustainable change for society. And whereas, to foster the next generation of women, the City of Portland seeks to encourage and support individual, educational, and social opportunities for women and people of any gender that identify as female-bodied individuals, so that there will not be competition with one another over scarce seats at the table, but rather an inclusive space for all to participate with a commitment to draw in women of color, empowering women to lead, benefiting entire communities, and making the City of Portland an employer of choice. And whereas Women's History Month is a time for all Portlanders to celebrate the paid and unpaid work of women who improve the livability of the city, working both inside and outside of the home. And whereas during Women's History Month, all people are encouraged to reflect on past victories and struggles of women to create a society where the next generation's success is based on the content of their character and not determined by their culture and gender identity. And whereas the 2022 Women's History Month theme, Break the Bias, is chosen in solidarity with International Women's Day and women around the world. As we continue to move through the pandemic and try to build more humane and equitable systems, we're making a call to action. Break the bias and build communities that are inclusive and just for all. Take steps to break the bias against women and those with intersecting identities so that we may all be uplifted. Now, therefore, I, Ted Wheeler, Mayor of the City of Portland, Oregon, the City of Roses, do hereby proclaim March 1st to March 31st, 2022 to be Women's History Month in Portland and encourage all residents to observe this month. Thank you, colleagues. Next item, please, is on the regular agenda, an emergency ordinance, item number 173, please, Keelan.
Pay settlement of James Thorne bodily injury lawsuit for the sum of $200,000 involving Portland Parks and Recreation.
This ordinance resolves a bodily injury claim filed against the city in June of 2019. Senior Deputy City Attorney Denise Vanier and Senior Claims Analyst Joseph Jesse are here to present the ordinance. Welcome, Denise and Joseph.
Thank you, Mayor. Good morning, Mayor and Commissioners. My name is Denis Vanier. I'm a Senior Deputy City Attorney and the city's appellate counsel in this case. I will quickly outline the litigation and the proposed settlement in this matter. And Senior Claims Analyst Joseph Jesse can answer questions about risk management's recommendation in this case. So the proposed settlement before you today stems from a bicycle accident that occurred in May 2018 on the Rivergate Trail in the Smith and Bybee Natural Wetlands area. The Rivergate Trail was closed to recreational use at the time, and plaintiff was injured when he rode his bicycle into an unmarked metal cable that was stretched across the trail. This caused his bicycle to flip over the cable and injured the plaintiff. The city, the Port of Portland, and Metro each have overlapping responsibility for maintaining various trails in the Smith and Bybee Natural Wetlands area. And plaintiff in this case eventually sued all three entities for his injuries and asked for $1.9 million in damages. The Port of Portland tendered its defense of the claim to the city under an agreement between the port and the city accepted the tender of defense in that case. The city, the port, and Metro then moved for summary judgment based on the doctrine of recreational immunity. The trial court granted that motion and plaintiff appealed. At that stage, the parties agreed to mediation before retired Judge Michael Sullivan to explore whether there was a way to resolve the case. And the proposed settlement before you today came out of that mediation. As you can see, it would resolve the claims against the city and the Port of Portland for a total of $200,000, which is substantially less than the $1.9 million sought in the complaint. Risk management, Parks and Recreation, and the city attorney's office recommend the settlement, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Colleagues, any questions? Keelan, is there any public testimony on this item?
No one signed up.
Please call the roll.
Rubio.
I'm sorry that this incident occurred and that all the parties have come to an agreed resolution on the matters at hand. I'm also looking forward to the circumstances that led to it to be addressed together with the other jurisdictions. I vote aye.
Ryan.
Aye.
Hardesty.
Aye.
Max.
Aye.
Wheeler.
Aye. The ordinance is approved. Next item, 174, please.
Pay settlement of Kyle Odell's bodily injury lawsuit for the sum of $400,000 resulting from a motor vehicle collision involving the Portland Police Bureau.
This ordinance resolves a bodily injury claim filed against the city in January of 2020. Deputy City Attorney Beth Woodward and Senior Claims Analyst Karen Bond are here to present the ordinance. Welcome, Beth and Karen.
Morning, Mayor Wheeler and City Commissioners. As you said, I'm Karen Bond. I'm the Senior Claims Analyst with Risk Management. And with me today is Beth Woodward, Deputy City Attorney, and she will present this agenda item. Thank you. Beth?
Good morning, Mayor and Commissioners. As Karen mentioned, my name is Beth Woodward. I'm a Deputy City Attorney. We're here today to discuss the proposed settlement for claims filed by Kyle Odell.
On January 18th, 2020, Mr. Odell sustained serious and permanent injuries during an in-custody transport by Portland Police Bureau. On that evening, Mr. Odell was taken into custody. He was handcuffed, placed in the right rear seat of the police car, and seatbelted. While en route to Multnomah County Detention Center, the officer lost control of the police car and crashed into a telephone pole. The primary point of impact was the rear passenger side of the car where Mr. Odell was seated. No other vehicles were involved in the collision. The officer immediately called for medical response and rendered emergency aid to Mr. Odell. Mr. Odell was transported to OHSU by ambulance and was diagnosed with severe injuries requiring surgery. He was hospitalized for a short time following the accident and has received outpatient care as well. Although Mr. Odell's surgeries went well, he may require future surgeries. Investigations ruled out intentional or grossly negligent conduct by the driving officer, including ruling out intoxication or distraction. However, the investigation could not conclusively determine the cause of the accident. After its review, the Police Crash Review Board determined the accident was preventable. Based on these facts and subsequent investigations, the city admitted liability for Mr. Odell's injuries, which allowed the city to focus its efforts on resolving the case based on Mr. Odell's economic and non-economic damages. The parties engaged in private mediation, and both parties agreed to settle the lawsuit for $400,000, inclusive of attorney fees, past and future medical expenses, and non-economic damages. Mr. Odell has substantially recovered from his injuries, and we wish him continued recovery and good health. The city attorney's office and risk management recommend this settlement to resolve these claims. Thank you, and I'm happy to answer questions if the council has any.
Thank you, colleagues. Any question on this item? Keelan, do we have any public testimony?
Yes, Mayor, we have 2 people signed up.
All right, 3 minutes each. Name for the record, please.
First up, we have Dan Handelman.
Good morning, Mayor Wheeler and commissioners. My name is Dan Handelman. I'm with Portland Cop Watch, and I want to talk a little bit about this case and other cases like it. I'm not here to speak for or against the settlement.
Mr. Handelman, as you know, I'm a stickler about keeping testimony to the item at hand. This is
believe me, it's all related to this item. It's all related to this item.
I appreciate it.
I was very surprised just to hear now that the presentation said that there was no misconduct found on the part of the police officer, even though the Crash Review Board found it was preventable. The report in the newspaper about this said that the officer was driving 53 miles an hour in a 30-mile-an-hour zone. So it seems like there was other misconduct going on that wasn't addressed. So I read the Police Review Board reports very thoroughly, and there hasn't been any report of that misconduct coming to the Police Review Board for discipline for the officer. Now, it's also true that the officer resigned from the Bureau 5 months after this incident, but the most recent Police Review Board report made a point that the city continues to investigate even after the officers leave in case they try to get employment somewhere else. So I'm really not clear why the misconduct wasn't addressed. I got a little confused relaying this story to other people because the most recent Police Review Board report that was released on February 16 talked about another officer who went 90 miles an hour in a 30 zone and crashed into another car. And that case didn't talk about what happens to the person in their car, and it was investigated as a Bureau-only case, even though there was a civilian involved in it. Officer Gill, who was the officer in this case, was driving, and it also was just stated that he wasn't just done by distracted driving, but officers are encouraged to use their onboard computers while they're on patrol. And I just wonder how often that causes this kind of spinning out of control that happened here. We keep track of some of the largest settlements for misconduct since we started in 1992, and we're going to add this to a misconduct case, even though it was a car crash, because it seems the officer was out of policy for what he was doing. This is the 11th highest settlement for a misconduct case that we've logged since 1992. There's also, we've been tracking car crashes since 2013, and there's been almost $1 million in those cases. So as always, while this is, we're glad this was put on the regular agenda for discussion, and we understand that you don't like talking about the details of a case because of the legal implications, we really encourage you to talk about the policy issues, the underlying policy issues. And Commissioner Rubio just addressed that with the bicycle case. Let's try to deal with the problem so we don't have it again. So we should be talking to officers about why they're driving so fast and whether or not they're getting distracted. And in fact, the case with the 90-mile-an-hour officer, the police review board said that he should put the officer back on a job where he doesn't have to drive anymore, because it was his either third or fourth driving misconduct case in 3 years. And the Bureau said, no, we can't do that. It's impractical. So thank you for your time.
Thank you, Dan. Next individual, please, Keelan.
Next up, we have Mark Porras.
Yep. Hi, for the record, my name's Mark Porras, and I use he, him pronouns, and I live in Northeast Portland. Thankful to Ms. Woodard for giving us a little more information about what happened in this case. I'm testifying in support of the $400,000 settlement for Mr. Odell. I also hope he's able to recover from his injuries. And, the city has millions of dollars in the insurance and claims fund. And this money is much better off in the hands of the people harmed by city employees than it is in that fund. So I wish Mr. Odell was getting more money. This incident happened in January 2020, which was before the first case of COVID-19 in Oregon. The only information that I could find on this was that one article in the Tribune by Zane Sparling. The officer who was driving was first hired as a reserve in 1978. He received 2,931 hours of training over his career, and he resigned shortly after the incident. He was driving 53 miles an hour in a 30-mile-an-hour zone, and the car hopped the sidewalk and careened into a sign in the telephone pole. And as Ms. Woodard said, the impact was in the rear right side of the car. So, yeah, I have no idea how that would have happened. This happened over 2 years ago, and Mr. Odell's finally going to receive some money for the settlement. And the negligence of the officer in this case speaks for itself, and it just really leaves me with questions. Why does it take 2 years to receive a settlement from the city? Why do so many people believe that more training is going to be the answer to our police accountability problems? Why is there just so little information about this incident available for the public? And I realize that all I'm doing right now is complaining, so I do want to maybe make a suggestion here that could help us out. For the sake of transparency and better government, I'd love to see attached to every settlement's impact statement the amount of time and money spent by risk management and the city attorney's office on the case. I think if you could give that information to the public, I think it's going to help us realize that maybe we shouldn't be asking our city attorney's office to go for the lowest possible settlement amount, and maybe we can actually get these people harmed by PPB a little bit more money, obviously with the goal of getting rid of cops that do this kind of thing. So thanks for your time.
Thank you, Mark. Keelan, does that complete public testimony?
Yes, it does.
Colleagues, any further discussion on this item? Seeing none, please call the roll.
Rubio.
I want to say I'm sad about what happened to Mr. Odell, and I'm wishing him a strong recovery. And I'm glad that the parties came to a resolution in this case. I vote aye.
Ryan.
Yeah, I want to echo my colleagues' comments that I hope that the healing process goes well and any future surgeries and such. And I approve the settlement. I vote aye.
Hardesty.
I think because this is the only chance the public has to weigh in on these settlements, there's a misperception about what a settlement means. The settlement means that both parties came together, they negotiated and came to a compromise. The settlement means just that. It doesn't carry any more weight other than both sides of an agreement came together and came to a mutually beneficial outcome. I also share my colleagues' concern and wishes that the gentleman who was injured in this accident does not suffer any long-term repercussions from that. And I am hopeful also that we have looked at our operating principles around appropriately driving with a passenger in the police vehicle. Clearly, there are more questions that will not be answered by this settlement, but I just wanted the public to know that a settlement is just that. Both sides come together, nobody gets everything they want, and that's why it's called a settlement, and I vote aye.
Maps. Wheeler.
This was a very serious accident, and Mr. Odell was seriously injured. And so the one positive in this is I was pleased to hear today that he's making a solid recovery, and that should be foremost in all of our minds. I do agree that with regard to distracted driving or speeding or fatigue or any other issue which may come into play on this or any other issue, it's important. A lot of city employees drive as part of their employment, and we should be looking both towards training as well as enforcing standards and ensuring that our employees are in a position to drive safely when they are driving. But for today, I accept this settlement. I appreciate that it was resolved out of court, and I'm grateful to hear that Mr. Odell is making a full recovery. I vote aye, and the settlement is approved. The ordinance is approved. Item 175, please.
Ratify a collective bargaining agreement with the District Council of Trade Unions relating to the terms and conditions of employment of represented employees in the bargaining unit for 2021 through 24.
Colleagues, this ordinance authorizes a 4-year agreement with the District Council of Trade Unions from January 1st, 2021 to December 31st, 2024. All employees covered by this agreement will continue to receive annual cost of living increases, a one-time payment of $3,000, and will continue to have 95% of healthcare premiums paid by the city. Employees can also now use up to 40 hours of leave for immigration-related matters for themselves or members of their immediate households. Employees in certain classifications may now be eligible to telework. The city and DCTU will create a work group to review select classifications for salary review. Labor Relations Coordinator Jamal Anthony is here with several members of the Bureau of Human Resources to present the ordinance. Welcome, Jamal and team. Thanks for being here today.
Hi, good morning, Mayor. Good morning, Council. My colleague Anne Marie is going to speak first.
Good morning, Mayor and Commissioners. My name is Anne Marie Kevorkian-Maddie. I'm a Labor Relations Coordinator and one of 2 negotiators assigned to lead the negotiations with the DCTU. And first, I just wanted to say that obviously these were quite protracted negotiations. We faced a lot of complex issues and challenging environment negotiating from a virtual space, but we're grateful to have reached a tentative agreement that's before you today. Just a couple of highlights. We focused on 3 themes as part of these negotiations. That was fiscal responsibility, preservation of city jobs, and equity. And this agreement provides changes to the contract language and provides economic benefits that impact every single bargaining unit member and allowed us to meet those themes. The agreement also provides for minimal ongoing costs, and we were intentional in the use of one-time funds at the guidance of our city budget office and council. And while I don't want to repeat what the mayor said, some of the highlights of that are the ongoing cost of living increases that will occur annually, a one-time bonus that will be afforded to all DCTU members, a 2% across the board increase in the 4th year of the contract, and increases to the shift differential premiums that for employees that work non-traditional hours. And of course, a new leave bank that will allow our employees that are managing citizenship and immigration matters the opportunity to do that paid. Joining me today, of course, is Jamal Anthony, and then also from our bargaining team, Leslie Goodlow from the Housing Bureau, and Dave Benson from PBOT. And I believe that Leslie would like to offer up a few words. And so I'm going to hand this over to her. Thank you.
Good morning, Mayor and Commissioners. Leslie Goodlow, Equity and Business Operations Manager for the Portland Housing Bureau. And I just want to give on behalf of the team a big shout out and thank you of appreciation to Anne Marie and Jamal, Kathy Bless, Jarrell, and Ron Zito. This was a very long process, and in the end, Kathy and her team at BHR got us over the finish line. And as a manager here in the city of Portland, I appreciate all the time and effort that they put into to getting this contract completed. And just wanted to offer my appreciation, and just very excited and happy that this is going to get approved today, I hope, and that we can move forward with a new contract for the DCTU. Thank you.
Thank you, Leslie. Thank you, Anne Marie. As Leslie stated, what we brought before you today, Council, is a contract. More loosely, it's a collection of articles that govern the wages, hours, and working conditions of the DCTU employees. But I'd like to just highlight that behind that went a lot of thought and nuance and discussion. And Anne Marie and myself would like to specifically say thank you to our bargaining team for their time, their dedication and flexibility over this 25-month bargaining period, a period that started pre-COVID, that went into the post-COVID world. We'd like to express our heartfelt gratitude to the entire DCTU membership, their affiliates, and their lead negotiators for coming to this agreement. We'd like to say thank you to the City Budget Office for their forecast and insightful guidance. And last, but certainly not least, we would like to say thank you to all 5 members of Council and your staff for your availability, your leadership, and resolve throughout this process. And we look forward to working with you and for this Council on future labor agreements in the future.
Does that complete your presentation?
That does complete. I apologize, Mayor.
No problem. Call it. Sometimes I jump the gun, and I'm always cautious about that. Colleagues, any questions? Keelan, do we have any public testimony on this item?
No one signed up.
Very good. Please call the roll.
Rubio.
I want to start off by thanking both the DCTU lead negotiators and our management negotiation team for finding common ground on this contract. As you mentioned, it wasn't easy, and there was much for our team to learn, and our office to learn in multiple bargaining sessions that took place in our first year here at the city. So we thank you for your patience with our learning. Today, I also want to commit that my office will work more closely with the city attorney's office, the city budget office, and BHR to look at some of the issues raised about how bargaining takes place at the city. And I also want to thank the team that we do have to represent us. And again, our office wants to be very helpful and involved as we're learning and getting our bearings, and ensure that we're providing you with the clear guidance and tools you need from us so that you show up at the table in the best possible way. I know it's been, again, just want to appreciate again, I know it's been challenging with so many new people on council. So again, that was important to acknowledge. And to our labor partners, I want to thank you for continuing to work with us. These negotiations can be naturally messy and complex, but above all, what's very simple here is that our city employees are what makes the city run and provide great, exceptional service and are hardworking so that they can provide the services that are needed to all our residents in the city. And we should do what we can to show that appreciation by keeping our talented employees here at the city. So thank you. Thank you so much for that. Lastly, I just want to thank all our council staff for continuing to work collaboratively in finding solutions on these things together. For these reasons, I vote aye.
Ryan.
Yes. First of all, thank you to the DCTU lead negotiators and to those who framed this issue today. Anne Marie, Leslie Goodlow, and Jamal Anthony, thank you. Colleagues, I am grateful for this opportunity to support this ordinance today. However, I'm well aware this process was challenging. The past 2 years have been extremely difficult for all of us, and that is definitely true for our city employees. Now that we have reached this agreement, it's time for us to communicate and have time to heal. I look forward to connecting with the memberships of the DCTU and having some listening sessions with all of you to build bridges. The District Council of Trade Unions represents nearly 1,200 city workers across nearly all Portland's bureaus, including accountants, water maintenance workers, and building inspectors. Thank you for your service to our city, and thank you for surviving so many challenges throughout these extraordinary circumstances. It's with you in mind that I enthusiastically vote aye.
Hardesty.
I also want to thank Jamal, Anne Marie, Kathy, and Leslie for their stick-to-itness and what has been a very, very long process. I want to start, though, by thanking the employees that are represented by DCTU. I will say city employees were extremely generous 2 years ago when everything came to a halt. In fact, this month, 2 years ago, in March of 2020, when none of us knew what the future held. I am so proud to know many of the city employees who took furlough days. They rearranged their schedule to accommodate people who had to take care of elderly parents or kids at home. What I've seen from city employees since COVID began 2 years ago has been absolutely phenomenal. And I will say that I am glad that we came to a conclusion that did not include a strike, because I never thought a strike would benefit either the employees who would be on strike or the city of Portland itself. I hope that this ratifying this contract today gives us the opportunity to start the healing process. I know there are still lots of hard feelings for many reasons around how we got to this contract. And I want to say that I hope that we will, as a city, start being much more intentional, knowing that we're always negotiating another contract, a union employee contract, that we'll be more intentional about knowing what resources we have at the front end, rather than trying to play catch up at the back end. I think we could do better. And I hope we will. I hope we do some evaluation about what went wrong in this process and how we can do better moving forward. But I want to appreciate the hard work. Again, I know how hard this was because there were multiple major contracts under negotiation at the same time. So taking nothing away from the hard work that happened, I just wanted to make sure that I'm happy to vote aye. And I hope that as we move through the budget process, that we actually prepare for the next contract talks rather than actually playing catch up at the back end. I vote aye.
I'm sorry, Commissioner Mapps, I didn't hear. I'm assuming you. Aye. Oh, thank you. Wheeler.
I would like to extend my thanks both to the city bargaining team as well as DCTU. I'm not going to break any new ground here. I'm going to say what everybody else has already said, which is we appreciate the work that our public employees have done, particularly over the last 2 years. This has been a very trying time, and I'm glad that through good faith bargaining, we've reached an amicable and supportable and affordable agreement for everybody. Thank you, everybody, for the hard work you put into this. I vote aye. The ordinance is approved. Thank you. Next item, please. 176.
Authorize limited tax revenue refunding bonds through December 31st, 2024.
Colleagues, the city of Portland finances many of its capital projects through the issuance of limited tax revenue bonds, which are secured by the city's full faith and credit. Depending upon market conditions, the city may periodically refinance these bonds at lower interest rates, thus reducing our interest costs. The following item is an administrative action to renew the city's authority to refinance its limited tax revenue bonds for savings through December 31st, 2024. And today we have Matt Gurok, the city's debt manager, to walk us through this important item. Matt, welcome.
Thank you. Good morning, Mayor Wheeler and commissioners. For the record, I'm Matt Gurok, the city's debt manager. The mayor's introductory remarks provided a good summary of this item, so my remarks will be very brief. Municipal bonds, which the city issues, are conventionally issued with a provision that allows for refinancing after 10 years from the date of issuance. If current market rates are lower than the rates on eligible outstanding bonds, the city will refinance those bonds with refunding bonds. The city's next refinancing of limited tax revenue bonds will be the Series 2012 C bonds, which are payable from PBOT resources. The savings are projected to be approximately $100,000 annually through 2033, which is approximately $1 million in net present value savings. That refinancing is expected to occur this coming June. The debt management team regularly monitors the city's debt portfolio for refinancing opportunities, and by enacting this ordinance, it will allow the city to efficiently manage the city's debt. And with that, I'm happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
Colleagues, any follow-up questions? Keelan, do you have any public testimony on this item?
No one signed up.
Commissioner Mapps.
Matt, I'm happy to give you the authority to do this, but I do have a question. I get the impression that in general, interest rates are heading up, so I'm surprised that there's an opportunity to refinance at a lower rate. Like, how does that work?
Well, this is a very kind of a technical issue, but when municipal bonds are issued, they're issued with a coupon rate that's different than bond yield of which they're sold. So most typically, whenever we issue bonds, they'll end up being a refinancing opportunity within 10 years. That's usually the case. So yeah, it's really like a nuanced part about the municipal bond market. So usually there is a refunding opportunity for bonds when we issue them.
Okay, I'm still not quite tracking, but I think this probably is a separate meeting. Thank you. Those are all my questions.
Very good. Thank you, Commissioner Mapps. Any further discussion? Keelan, please call the roll.
Mayor, I believe this is a first reading.
Oh, did I get that wrong? You're right. Thank you for keeping an eye on that. This is a first reading of a non-emergency ordinance. It moves to second reading. We'll see this one again next week. Next item, please. Item 177, and this is also a first reading of a non-emergency ordinance.
Authorize permanent bonded lien interest rates for installment payment contracts financed by the Limited Tax Improvement Bonds 2022 Series B.
Obviously, this is Bonds Day. Ladies and gentlemen, in January of 2022, the City of Portland issued bonds to fund local improvement districts, sidewalk repair, system development charge assessments, and the like. An interim rate of interest was assessed on these contracts and now needs to be adjusted to reflect the lower interest rates set by the bond sale. Audit and Accounting Manager Scott Carter and Financial Analyst Janice Hammond are here to present the ordinance. Welcome, Scott and Janice.
Good morning. Thank you, Mayor. I'm Scott Carter. Again, I'm the Audit Accounting Manager in the Revenue Division. And Janice Hammond-Getton, who you mentioned was a financial analyst in our division, is here to help answer any questions. So as the mayor stated, the city issued bonds in January to fund local improvement district, sidewalk repair, and system development charge assessments. The bonds will be repaid through installment contracts from property owners that have assessments on their property. Following standard procedure, an interim rate of interest was assessed on these contracts. This rate was set prior to the interest rate of the related bond sale being determined. This interim rate now needs to be adjusted to reflect the actual interest rate set by the bond sale, which in this case is lower than the interim rate. The city debt manager, who you just heard, has certified the permanent interest rate on these contracts. This adjustment is routine and required under city code. This legislation has no financial impact to the city, and the impacted property owners have already signed installment contracts for these charges. So we're now happy to answer any questions you might have.
Well, it doesn't sound very controversial, does it? Do we have any public testimony on this item, Keelan?
No one is on the call for this item.
All right. Well, you know what I love? I love it when there aren't a lot of people signed up for public testimony on an idea or an item related to our issuance of bonds. That's a good sign. So this is a first reading. It moves to second reading. Commissioner Hardesty has a question there.
No, I don't have a question, Mayor. I was just going to say the reason we don't have any questions is because we have such fabulous people that do such an excellent job of explaining this. And I think this is probably the third or fourth time I've heard Scott do this presentation. You may remember I grilled him unmercifully the first time. And everything, it just makes so much sense. It's just so easy to not question Scott and his expertise. Really appreciate you being here again, Scott.
Thank you.
Bonds are beautiful. This is a first reading of a non-emergency ordinance. It moves to second reading. Thank you, Scott. Next item, 178. 178.
Approve application under the multiple unit limited tax exemption program under the inclusionary housing program for Madera Main Street located at 1155 Southwest 19th Avenue.
Colleagues, this is a first reading of a non-emergency. I'm sorry, no, this is a second reading. Any further business on this item? Commissioner Hardesty, are you teeing up there? Nope. Good. Very good. Second reading. We've already heard presentation. We've already heard public testimony on this item. Please call the roll.
Rubio.
Aye.
Ryan.
Yes, colleagues, as you heard in the presentation last week, this multi-project for the Modera will add an additional 34 units of inclusionary housing to the market in Portland at the 60% tile for the median family income. This brings the total number of private sector buildings in the inclusionary housing permit approval pipeline to 183, restricting a minimum of 1,272 units in otherwise market rate developments. I recognize that our city's inclusionary housing program is imperfect and that there is more work to do to meet the growing housing needs of Portlanders. That's why I look forward to the report that my office will bring forward later this year with the Portland Housing Bureau. I vote aye.
Hardesty.
Aye.
Maps.
Aye.
Wheeler.
Aye. The ordinance is adopted. Item 179, please also a second reading.
Assess benefited properties for street, sidewalk, stormwater, sanitary sewer, and water main improvements in the Northeast 47th Avenue Phase 1 Local Improvement District.
Colleagues, this second reading. Any further discussion? Seeing none, please call the roll.
Rubio.
I just want to thank Commissioner Hardesty and PBOT for bringing this forward. This is another great example of cross-bureau collaboration. And also want to thank Columbia Slough Watershed Council and other property owners in the freight community who are also involved. I vote aye.
Ryan.
Yes, thank you, Commissioner Hardesty, and thank you for that great presentation last week with the multi-bureaus. That was actually one of my favorite presentations in a long time. I vote aye.
Hardesty.
I want to thank Commissioner Rubio, Commissioner Maps, my fabulous team at PBOT. I'm very happy to vote aye. This project is long overdue.
Maps.
Thank Commissioner Hardesty for bringing this item forward. In addition, I'd like to thank Commissioner Rubio for her important contribution to this effort. And I'd like to congratulate and celebrate the collaborative and innovative work done here by staff at PBOT, Parks, Water, and BES. This project is an example of good government at its best. For these reasons and more, I vote aye.
Wheeler.
Good work, everybody. I vote aye. The ordinance is adopted. Keelan, that completes our business for the morning.
Yes, it does, Mayor.
Very good. Thanks, everybody. We'll see you later. We are adjourned.